Welcome to Into the Chatterverse, where two gents share their 2 cents on pop media. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm Bill, and I'm not doing any kind of editing. That's an inside
If I mess
joke.
up, I mess up. Okay. All right. This is what it is. This is what it is. But no, we're back for a brand new episode where we're going to chat about some casting news that is going to either rock the world or going to go ho-hum and people are going to be like, meh. We've got 2 different camps that we're going to talk about. The upcoming Gods and Monsters DC slate, spearheaded by James Gunn's Superman Legacy. The first piece that we're going to talk about is the cousin of Superman has been cast for the upcoming Girl of Tomorrow series, which is rather exciting. You haven't read that book yet, though.
No, I have not.
Okay.
But I've seen this actress.
Okay.
And in House of Dragons.
Yes, I think that's how all of us really.
Yeah, and when you first see her, you're like, well, yeah, it's a girl, but she is very much 23 years old.
That's wild because she does not look it.
She does not look it at all.
Yeah.
And she played it very well young. And I'm very curious to see how she plays Supergirl.
Yeah.
Not to mention the fact she's Australian. I want to hear her accent.
That is going to be a good one.
You know what? It would be interesting if they let her keep it.
That would be. Oh, wait a minute.
I mean,
Hold on. Forget
why
what we were going
not?
to talk about. Yeah. Wait. That's a really good point. When
Yeah.
you have a character that doesn't have any particular upbringing on
Right.
Earth, who cares what her accent might be?
Exactly.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one. That's a really good one. Okay. I really like that. My question was, in terms of the establishment of ages, how old is she supposed to be in this story? Because in the story, the comic book, Supergirl has just turned 21. And in comparison, I think you said that Superman is supposed to be in his mid-20s. Are we seeing these as part of like a close timeline to each other from Legacy to this movie coming out chronologically? Or is this like when this story takes place, it's actually years after Legacy and Superman would by necessity need to be older? I'm curious.
Well, I think that, as far as bringing her in, she's definitely playing her. She's got to play her younger.
Right.
Because she doesn't look older.
She does not at all.
So it would, and not knowing how old David Cornsweet, how old he is, though, I'm sure he could play.
I think he's like 29.
Yeah, he could play late 20s or
Sure.
late 30s, whatever. But maybe they're going to play her instead of 21.
You think they'll play her younger?
14, 15 years old.
Okay. All right.
I don't know, I don't know the story not very well. I don't know the story at all.
Sure.
But I would go to her strengths.
Sure.
She's very much looks childlike.
Right.
So why wouldn't you go with that? And I'm sure she can play a very aggressive, mature-ish.
Sure.
14, 15-year-old.
Well, especially if you consider that in this story, I don't know that if it's established that she's 21 based on her Kryptonian age or what she seems to be on Earth. Like, because she's not on Earth. Like, that's one of the key parts of the story. So her being 21 is more about like the backdrop of what she's trying to do, which is to basically get drunk for the first time. And if the idea is she wants to experience something of age, she doesn't have to be 21 to do it. She can definitely be younger and just want a sense of independence. And I think that's something that Millie can do very, very well. In House of Dragons, she was a bombshell with the way she was handling everybody with just brutal tactics. Like her level of maturity for being quote unquote young in the show was amazing. Right. And I think she would definitely do really well with that.
I think the idea of trying to explain Kryptonian years versus
would be too much.
Human might be too much, unless you can establish that a year on Krypton is 1 point whatever or point whatever. But I think doing stuff like that just makes it more difficult for people to
get into it.
Yeah, because it's one thing to do Interstellar where you go, an hour is 7 years on a planet or whatever it was, and to see how everyone aged.
Right. Because that was the point of the story.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Right.
No, I get that.
I mean, and and plus that movie was about, science and theory.
Right.
So, you have to put that in, but I don't think you have to put that in. 15 years old can be 15 years old.
I agree.
That's, you could say that Superman doesn't age like a human,
Right.
which is fine because he's not a human.
He's not human. So that works.
Or, you could say, well, you couldn't say 15 years old to a Kryptonian looks like,
A 20
12 years, or 9 years old or whatever, because he grew up.
Right. And we saw that.
Yeah.
Yeah, we sath that
on Earth.
happen
So
it's got to be relative.
Yeah, I think it's in they'll talk about it in Earth years, or they'll mention it once, but then just refer to her as being
as that.
Yeah. So
do you think that David will be in this one? Will Superman make a cameo appearance in this, or do they almost kind of like they did in '84 want to establish her as a character separately?
I think somewhere.
Okay.
I don't know if it's going to be one of those things where he's got something more than just a cameo or just a post-credit scene. But I think that other than the House of L, you have to bring it in for people that don't know.
Okay.
Yeah, they go they're going to understand Superman, Supergirl. They'll understand that part. But they won't necessarily know how they're related. And if you go back to the Helen Slater, Superman wasn't even in it.
He wasn't at all. In fact, as I understand it, they were so weird. Not making them cousins, but were planning to make them a love item, which I would have been strange. But I did like how the CW did it by referencing Superman, but never showing him for a good minute before they did Tyler.
Yeah.
So I thought that was pretty cool.
And then, they create a Superman that kind of jobs for Supergirl.
I mean,
which
true.
I don't understand that, but okay.
It's kind of an interesting, he was kind of her sidekick.
Well, I mean, he's like the OG superhero.
Right. And yet.
And I'm not trying to say that it's a sexist thing. It would be the same way if I would want Wonder Woman to come in and job for Supergirl.
Right.
That's a well-established character.
Right. Who has their own history, showcase, all kinds of stuff. No, I agree with that. But also, you look at it as it was Supergirl, the show Supergirl, which I have no problem, and I enjoyed it for the 4 seasons that I watched it, and I just kind of gave up after a while because I kind of gave up on all the CW shows, which is more than fair.
Because there were some that had really good seasons, and there were some that they didn't.
Yeah,
and but I just I think that they have to have them in there somewhere.
I got it. I think that would be cool. I am kind of excited in terms of process because the story itself doesn't take place on Earth. I wonder if they will be using the volume at all to shoot this one, because it'll give them more opportunities to create foreign spaces, places, worlds, dimensions, whatever, and really see what kind of fun Millie can bring to this.
Well, I know that James Gunn says they're using practical effects when it comes to Superman Legacy.
Okay.
So I don't think he wants.
No, it doesn't sound like
really want to go that option. But then again, if a lot of it's gonna take place on Krypton, and you're gonna see the decay of it, right?
Right. Then
so
maybe
there's got to be something in there, and I don't necessarily think the volume is the way to do that either, because I think that Disney overuses it. Especially once they made it known that's
what they were doing.
Yeah, because before you were just like, oh, that's super cool. And
That is cool.
Then you're like,
there it is again.
Then you caught on to it, and it's like, oh, what?
It's back.
What
it's back. Volume.
Yeah.
No, that's fair.
So I'm a big fan of practical effects. I'm also a very big fan of CGI
when it's good.
Yeah,
when it's
done. Yeah. But the problem is that it's not that companies don't want to do a good job.
Right.
It's that they have only so much time to do it, and only so much resources
to get it done.
Right. And more, the artists are overworked. They're working 14-hour days, or 17-hour days, and that's why they unionized.
Yep.
And I have
good on them for it.
Yeah, they have to protect themselves.
Of course.
And too often anyway, these companies were underbidding so they could get the job, and they were closing up shop because they didn't have the money. And I just think that there are too many movies that rely too much on that.
Yes.
And actors, for the most part, they have a problem with it because they're trying to act off of
nothing
the backdrop, and
the
only thing that's there is green.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it's one thing if Mark Ruffalo's covered in dots,
right?
And then there's something that says this is where his head's at.
His head's going to be.
Yeah, but at least he's there,
right?
To do
actively be something that you can interact with.
Yeah, and I think even in the first Hulk movie, it was a tennis ball.
Yeah.
And it wasn't even a person. It was just a tennis ball.
Follow the ball.
You follow the ball. So I there's a happy medium there, and I think that the volume is a good tool.
Mm-hmm.
If you rely on it too heavily,
it shows.
Yeah, it shows. Just like CG.
Yeah.
I remember watching Superman Returns and thinking that when he's with Lois and they're taking off from the Daily Planet and flying around and everything, I'm like, that looks beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Come to find out that they were on a set and the background was green screen.
Yep.
Now there was actual structures on that set
for them to interact with, the weight and everything.
And so the top of the Daily Planet was there. Obviously the globe was CG, but I didn't know it at the time.
Right.
But it all made sense, and it all looked really good.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a very fine line that can be made by saying that. And then you have movies that don't do a very good job with either.
Don't do it at all.
No.
It's so bad. Okay, so switching sides, let's jump to the MCU and I don't even know what to call it, the possible casting of Sentry, another Superman analog, in the upcoming Thunderbolts movie. Earlier this year, I guess we could say, Steven Yeun dropped out, ? Quote unquote.
Yeah, I mean, it was always rumored, but Marvel never came out and said he's going to be there. The only person that did say that,
Robert Kirkman. Was that a power play on Kirkman's part? Did Kirkman make sure that his asset, commodity, whatever, was not snatched from him by the mighty Marvel $?
I mean, is he planning on using him in any live action thing he's got? Because voiceovers for an animated show don't take that long.
That is true.
And as far as The Walking Dead goes, he is dead.
Brutally so.
I'm sorry. Spoiler alert.
No.
He's dead.
You don't have to spoil that one. That literally turned the tide of the show when that happened. But no, I mean, like, there is always the opportunity that the live action Invincible movie pulls a James Gunn and actually uses the voice actors for it. And I can arguably see him wanting to protect Steven's, spot to be able to do that. But I think it's also a very dangerous move because whatever relationship Steven might have had with Marvel, Disney, Star Wars, all of those facets has now been tainted, like one way or the other.
Well, but that's if he was actually cast. And that's the problem.
Yeah.
There's so many times people drop out because scheduling conflicts.
Sure.
Which sometimes is scheduling conflicts.
Right.
There's also sometimes is I don't really want to do this.
I don't want to do this. I'm done. I don't want to do it.
Or we don't really want you.
Right.
This is the excuse we're going to use.
Right.
So it's one of those things where, was he cast? I don't know. I think he probably was, and for whatever reason, he decided he wanted to do it.
Right.
But then, there was another casting in there where someone had to drop out because of scheduling conflicts, and they were in a show that's very popular, so I can understand that. It was someone I'm not familiar with because it's on a show I'm not familiar with.
Got you.
And she was replaced by someone, once again, I am not familiar with. And they haven't disclosed who the character is, but just saying that one dropped out and one's taking over. So, do I think it's a bad move? No.
Right.
I just think it's a move.
It's just a move.
Yeah. Now, when we've replaced the writer or the writers dropped out.
That's a little more concerning.
That's concerning.
Yeah.
The big one is when the director.
Yeah.
To me, that's the big one.
Yeah.
When the director drops out. Especially when it's someone that is known for doing stuff really well. Now, when it's one of those things where we picked him because this movie was a hit, and then the next movie he did after we picked him is not so great.
Right.
And they're like, yeah, we don't,
Yeah, we don't know.
Yeah, maybe we won't do this movie after all.
Maybe you're not the guy.
And, of course, there's always we've hired this director to write this movie, and they never make the movie.
That does happen quite a bit, doesn't it?
Especially in the House of Mouse.
Yes. Would you feel any certain kind of way if a established actor suddenly dropped out from a character? So, like, we've got Florence Pugh, Sebastian Stan, we've got David Harbour. Like, these guys are playing established or returning roles.
Yeah.
If something happened where they started to drop out, which, again, you figure they're probably under contract, so they can't. But if there's enough of an issue where they're like, I don't want to do this, would that be something just as concerning to you as a writer-director dropping out?
No, because they recast someone in the movie already.
They did.
And,
very true.
William Hurt died.
Right.
And they brought in Harrison Ford
right away.
And do I think these two are the same? No.
Right.
No, I don't at all. I think they're very accomplished acters.
Right.
But they have two very different styles.
Very different acting styles.
But does it bother me? No.
Yeah.
Because they're both, one's going to play a little gruffer than the other because
one is
he's a little more gruffer. Yeah. No, I don't. Recasting to me, it doesn't really bother me.
Okay.
Unless they do a horrible job.
Gotcha.
And most of the time when they do a horrible job, they're trying to play it
like the other person. Makes sense.
I go back to Solo.
Yeah.
And there was so many times where it was back and forth. The character was his, or he was just trying to be Harrison Ford.
Right.
Like, but the problem there was they were different directors.
Right.
They'd fired the directors, and then they basically reshot 80% of the movie.
Right. I mean, it even goes back to your Superman Returns, where Brandon Routh didn't have to be a bad Superman under any circumstance, but he's Brandon Routh playing, Christopher Reeve playing Superman, which he didn't get a chance to be him.
Well, the story wasn't written for
Right.
him to be anything other than the Reeve Superman.
Right.
And to me, that whole thing was just an homage to Superman.
True.
Kevin Spacey was,
Oh,
I thought he was going to be
way.
great Lex Luthor, and he just ended up being not so great at being Gene Hackman, I guess.
Yeah.
That, to me, was a miscast.
It was a missed
for the
opportunity.
That movie could have been so much better, especially if they took out the part where, he's a stalker. I mean, that creeped me out when I was watching it. And
I'm just gonna stand out or fly outside your window and watch and listen. Since we're talking about it, I hated the promiscuous tone that they gave Lois, where she was clearly sleeping with two guys at the same time, where she could tell one that he's the dad, and he doesn't bat an eye about it. Like that was one of the things I was like, did we have to do that? Did we have to do the she's lying about who the dad is? That's not okay. That's not okay. Like if she told Richard, hey, listen, I'm pregnant, it's Superman's, but he's gone. You be with me.
Well, it doesn't matter whose it is. Let's put it that way.
True.
And she probably she didn't have to say whose it was until a certain
green substance showed up.
Well, or things started to manifest themselves.
True.
Why is he able to pick up the piano? I don't know.
Oh, it's so weird.
Why is he floating in the air?
You don't do that?
Yeah. Why is he's playing with fire, but it's scorching the
it.
walls and not anything else?
So strange. I don't know
yeah,
why that's happening.
That movie's super flawed.
Yes.
I almost wish they had never made it. So,
I get it.
Bryan Singer could have made X-Men 3.
The things that could have been. The things that could have been. I told you I'd ask David Hayter about what X3 would have been if he had stayed on. And he had some things. So it was cool. Speaking of, so the replacement Sentry, I just saw a thing a couple hours ago that said that it was an actor from Top Gun Maverick. This guy, Bob, I can't think of Bob's last name, but it was funny because they were like, he's in the background most of the time in Maverick, and you don't notice him, and how this could play perfectly into things because this is supposed to be a character that everyone has forgotten. And so this guy is just super unassuming. You don't, notice him right away. And I'm just like, that's just fun. I
think is Bill Pullman's son?
Yes. That's who he is. Wow. Okay. Oh, it's so weird. He does look so much like his dad, but doesn't at the same time. That's incredible.
Yeah, it's just
okay.
If it's the character I think it is, then he was memorable,
right?
From the standpoint that I remember him, kind of like Bill Pullman.
Yep.
He was that guy in that movie.
Yeah.
Until Independence Day,
and then you're like,
that's
exactly
Bill Pullman.
That's Bill Pullman.
Yeah.
Because what was it? What is that movie where he's the creepy guy, and he's trying to. He's in love with, I want to say it's like Jennifer Aniston or something crazy like that. But I'll always think of the trailer where he's making some like weird like it's so stupid. But again, like he's before that, you're like, I don't know who this guy is. He's that guy. I don't know whoever he is. But once
I just remember Meg Ryan, Sleepless in Seattle. He was in that. He was her love interest in that. And at that point, he was that guy in that movie.
Right. Very much so. God, I didn't realize he was in that. Okay.
Yeah. He was the guy that like, he's nice, but he's like in the background.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
All right. Cool.
But yeah, I mean, if, Lewis Pullman, sure, why not?
I like it.
If, I've only seen Top Gun, but he is the guy that I thought he was.
Okay. That's the rumor.
Yeah.
Right there.
Who is Robert Reynolds?
That is Sentry's real name.
Okay.
So that is the rumor that he is going to take over what Steven Yeun might have been, if maybe could have, would have been confirmed.
I could almost see them not wanting to confirm that was Steven Yeun.
Because the visual optics
because you went really white.
Yeah.
The other way.
Well, the character's portrayal is super white in the comics.
But yeah, that's fine. But, they went... that's just like if they went, we're going to make Sentry a woman. And someone, whoever they got dropped out. And like, this guy's available.
Psych.
We'll just change it.
We're just going to change it. It's fine.
It's bad optics.
Yeah.
If it's written very vaguely, then I don't really. I don't have a problem with it myself. But being a white guy,
I mean, I'm just saying, like we could have, Robert Downey could have came back for Black Panther 2, He could have been T'Challa. We could have just made
Robert
it work.
Downey.
Yeah. It's just a dude playing another dude. And it just would have been perfect. Like,
Okay. Yeah. That would have gone over really well.
That would have been horrible. They would have burned down theaters.
And that's a
across the
character I
world.
felt that they should have recast.
Yes. Ooh, that's a subject for another episode. We will get into that one. But I definitely agree with you.
Yeah.
But no, I think we've covered the gamut for that one. So I think that is just enough of the Chatterverse for this episode. Thank you guys for joining us once again, where we have joined our 2 cents to the conversation of pop media. I am Victor Dandridge, the hardest working man in comics.
And I'm that guy.
Not that guy. That guy, Bill. Not the Pullman. The other one. Much love to y'all. See y'all next time.
Bye.